Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amazing Transformations, and I have an amazing guest here, as usual. Today, though, I just wanted to share I'm Veganowledge JJ, and after my own health transformation 6 years ago, going plant-based and raw vegan, I thought I found a miracle, which now I found that I did. And this has been such a blessing to be able to bring other people on and hear their health transformational stories. And I also have the privilege of experts here like Meryl, and I'm going to read her bio. And I should have asked you this before we started. Can you pronounce your last name for me out loud?
I
Okay.
sure can. And thank you for asking. It's Fury.
Fury.
Just,
Okay,
yep.
that's what I was gonna say, and I'm like,
It's just the same word. It's a four-letter word in the English language, right?
it's
Yeah,
better that I use that one so I don't get taken off of
correct.
YouTube, right? But Meryl is a RNMS and is the president and CEO of Plant Based Nutrition Movement. PBNM, a 501c3 nonprofit based in the Chicago area. She's a master's prepared public health nurse with a profound commitment to improving health in vulnerable communities. She has devoted her career to reshaping how people view and choose their food. And in 2021, she launched the 6 Million Seeds Child Nutrition Product, a national grassroots initiative aimed to revolutionizing how children are nourished to support lifelong health, foster compassion, and protect the planet. She's also a co founder of the Sage Circle Alliance, a nonprofit organization that empowers plant based entrepreneurs throughout thought leaders, and change makers. Meryl is a Food for Life instructor, a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and serves on the medical advisory board of the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies. Through webinars, discussion groups, and community education, she inspires and equips people of all ages to make health conscious dietary decisions. And right before we came on, we were just talking about how she was one of my first interviews. I think it was in like 2022, and how I told her, like, at least we have a cooler looking background now. So thank you all for those of you who were here for that one and who are here for this one. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to have stayed connected with you through the internet over these couple years and to see how your platform is growing and what you're doing. It's exciting. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm excited too. I definitely pay attention from a distance of all the things you have going on. I think you were promoting an event then, and it was an amazing time we had, and I learned so much because it was so much earlier in my journey. But just to like set up here how I usually like to start is how did you grow up? Were you vegan from the beginning, or did you learn this later on, or how did your journey kind of come to be that you got involved with plant-based foods at all?
So it started when I was 15, and I'm going to put this in right here. For whatever reason, I have like an irritation in this eye, so it's tearing. So I'm just like going to
I'm
have to
so happy to
periodically
see me
dab the
again.
tear
That's what
away.
it is, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Just kidding.
The joys of getting into your 60s is what I think it is, you
You're
know.
kidding me.
Uh,
You're not 60.
yes,
Just
honey,
messing with this
I
guy.
am there. I have arrived.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, you look so good.
well, thank you. It's the magic of cameras do amazing things for people. Anyway, so
I think
I
it's the diet too.
well, there's that too. So I started this journey about how to eat, how to feed myself, what should I put in my diet, how to nourish my body when I was 15. And that was a result of, at that time, the price of beef went up really high, sort of all of a sudden. Like right now, people are complaining about the price of eggs.
Hmm.
Back then, people were complaining about the price of beef in a very similar way. And my mother, who was a gym teacher, physical education, she was very aware of what she had been taught a child's body needs to grow and stay healthy. And one of the important components of the square meal is what it was called. You put 3 square meals on the table. That's the way she was trained. And one of the components of a square meal was the meat part. So it was meat, there was milk, there was a starch, there was a roughage, and that's kind of how it went. Fruit was an extra.
Yes,
So
dessert.
anyway, right, right. Yeah, have some canned pears. Anyway, so my mom was really worried that to have two kids at home and her and my father, and she was the one responsible for the groceries, that she wasn't going to be able to put three square meals on the table every day. So it was really worrying her. And our family, we were, middle class folks. So we were used to having pork chops and ham and bacon and beef, London broil, whatever she was making. And she was a great cook. So over time, and it wasn't very long, maybe about 2 weeks, she was complaining every day about, how am I going to feed you kids? How am I going to put three square meals on the table? What are we going to do? And I remember, for me, that was very distressing. I love my mom. I was close to my mom, and to have her so worked up
Mhm,
over these three square meals a day was just like more than I could tolerate for her.
mhm.
So I went over to my girlfriend's house. Her family had four kids altogether. And her mother was going through the same thing, same conversation in her house. And we sat down. I really don't think it couldn't have been more than 2 weeks since the rise in beef prices started. And I at that same time, when beef went up, so did chicken, so did fish, so did pork, so did everything. Everything went up, right? All the animal products went up. And so my girlfriend and I decided, hey, how about we don't eat meat, and that extra 21 portions a week could go to mom, dad, sisters, brothers, whoever else wanted it, but we just didn't have to eat it. And that would make it easier on mom somehow, right? That was
Yeah,
all we could provide. That's all we could offer.
that was so sweet.
Right? What such thoughtful girls we were. Anyway, my mom comes to pick me up from my girlfriend's house after, my girlfriend Lori, I'm still in touch with her, made this decision and this commitment to each other that this is what we were going to do. My mom comes to pick me up from her house, and I tell her, guess what, mom? I've got an answer for you, because she probably had already started the whining and complaining about, how am I going to put three square meals on the table? And my response was, guess what? I've got an answer. I'm not going to eat up anymore. You don't have to worry about me. And she kind of lost it, right? No, the
Uh-huh.
point isn't that you shouldn't eat it at all. The point is, how am I going to afford it? And I was like, well, you don't have to afford it for me. Leave me out of the equation. I don't. And she tried really hard to get me to eat animal products after that. She tried every trick she knew. She
Mhm.
cooked, she'd put it on my plate. I'd push it to the side. I wouldn't eat it, things like this. And after, I think it was about a week, she had tried every night to get me to eat the meat, the spaghetti and the meatballs and the, sausage things and the whatever she had on the plate that night. And I just kept refusing. And finally, I guess she figured, well, okay, it's been a week and she hasn't, I
Yes,
hadn't, I hadn't
passed out
keeled
or
over
something.
yet. She was
Right.
afraid I was going to have some illnesses, I don't know, rickets. She was always worried about rickets. I don't know why. um, she stopped bugging me about it after a while. And then the only other thing that she would do periodically is ask me, so I need to make sure you're getting your protein. I need to make sure you're getting, enough calcium for your bones and stuff. And I had to be able to answer her. So I started doing a little bit of reading and studying. And at that time, at least what I had available to me, there weren't a lot of books. I never heard of anybody called T. Colin Campbell, although I love him dearly now. That wasn't a name I heard. I never heard of anybody called Caldwell B. Esselstyn, or Michael Greger wasn't. I don't even know if he was. I think he's younger than I am. I don't even know if he was born by then. Um, so I didn't have any of these people to go to and any of their reference materials to use. I had three books. One was Diet for a Small Planet by Frances Moore Lapé. I had one by Dick Gregory, Cooking with Mother Nature. And then I had another one called Survival into the 21st Century. And those are the books I use. So by the time I was 17 or 18, I was water fasting on my own. I would go 10 days at a time on water alone. That concerned my mother at first, but I was hard headed. I outlasted her. She just couldn't. Like, okay, you know what? You're too much for me. Um,
Sounds like
so
my mom in 2019, even though I was 42.
yeah, like, okay,
She was
you
still
do
going for it.
it. You do what you do, right? Um, yeah. So that's how my journey started. Over
That's
time, I
amazing.
kept, I cut out more and more animal products and kept feeling better and better. Um, and then at a point, when there's so many recalls on different animal products, this one's got E. coli, this one's tainted with other kinds of feces, this one's got this. It just got to a point, it was like, I just can't do
Mhm.
this anymore. So that's how
And
it went.
that is amazing. That is definitely, I love hearing how everyone's journey was so unique and we all end up sort of in the same place. But I'm so like thinking, man, if I had only discovered that, if I had only been aware of the price of beef going up, I might have been moving
Right.
earlier, right? That's a really cool story. And I think that shows probably why you've been so successful, because I think we have to be a little bit hard headed, as we want to call it, or convicted to stay in
Hmm.
our own beliefs and do our research, because it really is a lot of stuff there being thrown at us and a lot of, I feel like, misinformation. And welcome, Carl. Thank you. Muriel also commented that she's going to check out the replay, and Mariquita's here said she couldn't wait. So
Great.
thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And so you had this stopped eating meat, and you had researched it, and you had these books that were, it sounds like, very limited information.
Very good.
Was that, like, when did you start to take a turn to really get into the childhood nutrition, and then when you were a nurse, did that kind of all play a part, or is that why you became a nurse, or?
That's so funny. So I became a nurse because it was a means to an end. I had a child and I needed to pay for everything the child needed. I needed to support the baby, right?
Mhm,
So I got my nursing degree and was able to do that just fine. I honestly I wasn't one of those kids who I woke up one morning and I knew I wanted to be a nurse.
mhm.
I wasn't one of those kids who used to bandage my doll's arms and all. I wasn't that kid. I was not. Um, so the nursing part actually was later in my life, right? My first love was natural medicine, and my first independent study, things that I just dove into because I found them so fascinating, was herbology. So looking at the use, really literally, food as medicine
Mhm,
and using herbs to affect cures and changes in the human body. So that's how that started. Nursing came after that, and child nutrition came because in nursing, my specialty is public health.
mhm,
So I'm always looking at, like, big picture, what's going on with this population, that these illnesses are on the rise, or these challenges, the population is facing these challenges, or flip side, they're doing really well with this particular aspect of the social determinants of health, we call that. So what is it that allows that to happen?
mhm,
And at one point, it just became very, very clear that our child nutrition picture is dismal, and that our children's health is suffering in parallel, step for step, with the quality of the diet, right? Or the lack of quality in the diet.
mhm,
So that's where it became like it's my mission at this point,
mhm,
that to get people, one person at a time, one adult at a time, one child at a time, to understand that just because we're being marketed to for chicken nuggets and pepperoni pizza and all of these super savory, hyper palatable foods that are readily available for not a lot of money, just because we're marketed to for those things, doesn't mean that that's really a good idea to eat that, right?
Hmm.
Those are not health promoting foods. So my goal these days is to just give adults and children the experience of what it is to eat healthy food. What is it? What food actually supports your life and it boosts your energy and allows you to think clearly and helps you manage depression and anxiety and can reverse and prevent different chronic illnesses that never used to affect children at all. So that's the goal now.
I just watched a really cool interview on, I think it was Vegan Linked that you did, and you were
Thank you.
mentioning he brought up that children at as early as 10 years old or develop, as it atherosclerosis already. They're seeing
Yes.
signs in a lot of children.
And let me tell you, it's earlier than that. It's earlier than that. I just heard of a study that came out, I'm going to say it was about a year ago, maybe about a year ago, that said that when a pregnant woman eats a high saturated fat, junk food, ultra processed, animal centric kind of standard American diet stuff,
Hmm.
that her baby can be, and they showed it by scans, the babies are born with the fatty streaks already showing in their arteries, in their coronary arteries. So this is at birth, these things are
Hmm.
present. And then if the child progresses, let's say the mom happens to be somebody who likes McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Twizzlers and Twinkies and ho-hos or whatever else, right?
Hmm.
Takis and chips and all these things, then most likely she is going to start feeding her child those things,
Hmm.
right? So once the baby, somewhere around probably less than 1 year old, they start eating that stuff, then they develop the taste for that stuff, and that just continues to lay down the fatty streaks in the arteries, which there's only one direction that's going to go from there. If you keep eating like that, you know, it will eventually lead to all the chronic illnesses that used to only affect adults, which now are showing up in childhood.
And just for those that are watching this maybe for the first time, or people that I'll send the video to that are parents, like I think everybody wants great health for their child, and everyone understands that, yeah, I probably shouldn't give them Twinkies for every meal, but there's also this fine line of, okay, I want to make sure they're getting enough protein, and a lot of us, like your mom, thought that we needed that in meat. Can you explain like why it's better to have plant-based protein, and you can get enough protein? I would assume, like, that you figured out that the protein is different. Like, why would they choose to give them plant-based protein instead of animal proteins?
Yeah, sure. So here's there's so many different ways we can come at that one, right? But
Yeah.
here's
I'm sorry.
here's here's one. Most children, if you bring a cow or a piglet, a little baby pig, or a lamb or a bunny into a house, and you tell the child you have to kill that and eat it, they would like freak out, right?
Mhm.
That's not a normal thing for a child. If we were really carnivores, the child would have the instinct to kill the thing, kill the little precious little animal and eat it.
Right.
But we are not honestly carnivores like that.
Hmm.
We are carnivores almost as I'm going to say like of convenience, or when it's available, or
Hmm.
if that's the only thing available, then we can eat that and survive, right? But one of the things that happens when we're eating meat, there's so many um, indications that it is not the best diet for humans. I'm going to say at least 80% of the time. I'm
Hmm.
not going to make a big sweeping 100% statement like that, because there are certainly cultures that live on animal products alone, right? The Maasai in Kenya and Tanzania
Hmm.
live a lot on meat and animal secretions. That's what they do, right?
Hmm.
They seem to do okay on it. and they are very much a pastoral community. So I'm trying to be really careful and respectful of everybody's culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that when we're ingesting animal products, and actually I have a graphic I can send you, that you can put in the show notes or wherever you put,
Mm-hmm.
supporting information for your podcast, that shows, like, I don't know, 10 or 12 different chemical processes that kick in that are detrimental to the human body just by ingesting meat. So one of them, for example, is that there are endospores that live in the slaughterhouse environment. And these are bacteria, viruses that cannot be killed by heat or with cooking, in other words, that are known public health dangers, right? So there's E. coli and Shigella and Pseudomonas and all these nasty, nasty um, bugs that are just there available in the slaughterhouse. And that's what gets packaged with our animal products and put in the shelf or the cooler case for people to buy and consume. No health department anywhere in the world would recommend that we do that. Those
Mm-hmm.
are red flag illnesses and causes for things to get pulled from shelves when we have those kinds of diseases or bacteria present. But those are things that are readily available and all the time on meats that we purchase. Um, there's just so many indications that it's not the healthiest way to go for animal protein. What we don't hear about is the benefits of plant-based protein,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, we don't have any of those negative impacts when people eat plant-based protein. There's no saturated fat that is associated with it. There's no coronary artery disease that's associated with animal protein. There's no diabetes that's associated with fat or protein that come from plants. It's just the plants are cleaner, safer, and what we call health promoting,
Mm-hmm.
while the animal products are disease promoting.
That makes a lot of sense. And they have, when you mention like the saturated fat, that's the high saturated fat is what's doing that to our arteries, blocking our cells. And I'm sure it's a better, like a more complicated process, but also what is causing the root cause of diabetes and a lot of diseases.
Mhm.
And I know you touched on that as far as what they like. What are some examples of what we should be feeding our kids as an example as a meal? If you were looking at a breakfast, lunch, and dinner sample, like some people are like, I wouldn't know what to eat or what to feed them if
Right.
I'm not putting that meat, because in the beginning we all had that, like we felt like we were eating side products for our main meal, right? Like
That's so true, right? Um, so
so
first of all, I don't believe in there's breakfast foods and lunch foods and dinner foods.
mhm,
I think I'm just eating whatever I'm eating and I don't care what time of day it is. That's one
mhm,
thing. So I am very happy to have a salad first thing in the morning.
mhm,
Kicks my day off great. I'm also equally happy to have a tofu scramble or oatmeal for dinner. It's fine, right? I
mhm,
don't have any problem with that. As far as what children eat, um, we have to make sure that we don't fall into that same thought trap that it has to be a breakfast food at breakfast, right?
mhm,
So let's say we're in a stage where we're just going to start introducing more fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, whole grains, um, and mushrooms to a child. Maybe you would start with a tofu scramble at breakfast. That can be very egg-like if that's something your child likes. Some kids don't like that either, but that is one way you can do it. You could do breakfast tacos. Love those, right? So we just had these for dinner the other night. Black beans with some sauteed onions and garlic and zucchini with some, taco type flavor seasoning, whatever version of that you like, chili powder, put a little cumin, put a little cocoa powder on there. Gorgeous, right? Um, Throw some guacamole on there or some sliced avocado for your healthy fats. Add some picante sauce. If you like tomato based picante sauce, throw that on there. You can throw pumpkin seeds on there. Wonderful. Make yourself a plant based cheesy sauce, using nutritional yeast and maybe soaked cashews, or if you're family sensitive to nuts, you can make it out of carrots and boiled carrots and potatoes. Add the nutritional yeast, some salt and some pepper, maybe some garlic, some lemon,
Mm-hmm.
and make it to your taste. Right, that could be a breakfast. Um, Lunchtime. Let's say you have, this is one of my favorites. Get a sweet potato. Bake or, yeah, bake. Bake is good. Bake the sweet potato, right? Cut it open down the middle. Fill it, load it with fruits, right? So it could be berries like strawberries or raspberries, blueberries. It could be mandarin oranges, apples, cherries, um, pears, nuts and seeds, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of cinnamon. Make another cheesy or bechamel kind of sauce out of the same stuff, like the soaked cashews or um, potatoes or whatever works. There's so many, so many recipes on the internet that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very filling and so fun. For dinner, let's go with a baked potato bar. Take the pressure off yourself, right? Everybody gets a baked potato, and here are your toppings. Here's what you can fill it with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if your child only wants the baked potato with broccoli, or baked potato with chopped tomatoes, or baked potato, they only want sauteed onions and spinach, whatever they like, it doesn't matter. Anything they choose is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, and it takes the pressure off the person cooking. Here,
Mm-hmm.
you choose what you want. Eat as much of it as you want. Now, what I wouldn't do is become a short order cook. Do not make yourself crazy like that. Do not allow your little person, as far as possible, don't allow them to tell you, I only want this, or I only will eat that. And then you spend the next 10 years only making those things that your child will eat. I strongly encourage parents, keep broadening the child's palate. Keep
Mm-hmm.
offering new things. Take the child to the grocery store with you. Encourage them to, if they're real little people, find two red vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Find one orange vegetable. Oh, you found golden beets. That's really good. Let's try those.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to buy a lot. Buy, a small quantity just so you can test it out. Have your child help you in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
have them cook. These are all ways that children are more willing to try new things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking too one time I think I put grapes in a blender and like made a smoothie, and I was thinking about how sweet it is, and like I almost went into that song, but I was like, we don't realize when we buy, like I've noticed some of the things like that you can buy for kids, they want that sweet taste, but just the fruit itself, is sweet, and kids usually enjoy fruit and like it, but they don't look at that as a reward, as far as like they look at it as a cookie, but that's because of how we're in a sense programming
Yep.
them to look at this reward. So like if you could, a kid would get excited, I feel like, about a banana, learning to peel it and things like that, or little apple slices and things, if we allowed that. Or oranges are very good and sweet, and like I feel like a lot of times, I've often like had a picture in my head of like fruit themed birthday parties instead of, cakes and stuff, like
Yes.
if we could make this shift. And that's what I admire about your work, is you help people to kind of see that other side of it that we're never told, like especially not in mainstream. We're still, and then I think last time, oh, just really quick, welcome Dawn, thank you, she was actually here last time J&J Video Reacts with both of us. Thank you for that. And Carl said he would really like to see that graphic. I'll make sure you
Yes,
get
I will
that
definitely send
afterwards.
it.
But and then, so as far as like the community service things and the organizations you've been part of, last time we started talking about the nutrition in schools and things like that. And I think there's changes being made in some places, but what were your thoughts on that, like how our kids are fed in school?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's the blessing and the curse of it, right? The proverbial double-edged sword. So we are super grateful that kids get something to eat, because
Mhm.
there are kids who depend 100% on the school food programs. And if it wasn't for the school food programs, there are some kids who would have no reliable meal in a day, right? So they're getting breakfast, they're getting lunch, sometimes they're getting snacks, sometimes they're getting even meals in the evenings, right?
Mhm.
So we're super grateful for that they're getting something. Um, a child who's hungry is not ready to learn. We know that for sure. The other edge of the sword, however, is that the quality of school food meals leaves a lot to be desired. You know, there's a lot of ultra processed foods, a lot of chemicals and artificial dyes and stabilizers and texturizers. Even when they talk about reducing the salt or the sugar content, it's still not optimal what they're doing. You know, the other part is too that the school food is administered or overseen by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And that department has a dual purpose. One is to tell Americans how to eat, what to eat. They made that pyramid and now it's the my plate, right? And they need to make sure that American farmers have a market for their crops and their products. Those two purposes can be at odds.
Mhm.
Because if we know that a heavy animal centric diet is detrimental, and if we know that a lot of kids are allergic to dairy products, cow's milk, animal milk products, but the USDA has this other thing that it has to do, which is promote the sale of these products,
Mhm.
then you run into this conflict of interest kind of, you know?
Mhm.
So thankfully, we have some, that's at the federal level, right? So what we have now are some states that are trying to make a difference for their own populations, right? So you have New York, Massachusetts, I believe California, Illinois, maybe Colorado, I think, that are actually trying to put legislation in place or have successfully put legislation in place that says certain things are just flat out not acceptable in our school food programs. So, for example, Illinois, you know, it's so funny. There's the wording of these things is always so critical to whether
Mhm.
they pass or fail. In Illinois, what they did was they said any child who requests a plant-based meal can get it with a prior request to the school board,
Wow.
which is great. So kids in Illinois that pass, no problem. So kids in Illinois have the option or the opportunity to request a 100% plant-based meal and get it by law. It's not being very well advertised,
Mhm.
but for those who know, they can request. Now, then the question comes in, what is the school doing to create? What does that look like, a plant-based meal for school?
Mhm.
It could look like pizza without cheese, but extra vegetables on it. It could look like a black bean burger with, you know, fries. It could look like a sun butter sandwich and jelly,
Mhm.
right? So there's different levels, you know, different types of quality, different ways it can go. But that's one thing. Hawaii is also doing this, wants more plant-based options in the schools.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
in theory, I just hope it doesn't, to your point, go down a okay, we're gonna do you know, processed everything,
Yes, the
because
minimum,
the
right?
way that the processed food industry is growing, I can see almost, and a lot of the, I was just listening to a show last night where a lot of the companies like Tyson and these bigger companies are intercepting these smaller plant-based
Yes.
meat companies. So it's like if that interest becomes the same, we could see a shift from, yes, while maybe slightly better, but not better in the sense that we're just going from a different kind of processed food to a new kind of chemically processed
Yeah.
food. But we will take I guess the steps. At least there is a thought of plant-based foods in schools, and it's not unheard of like it was, years ago.
Yeah. Even, yeah, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah, no. The school menus, if anybody is interested, most of them are available. You can look them up online. The menus
Mhm.
are generally available, and they're appalling, a lot of them. A
I
lot of them.
remember my school meals. I
Mhm.
would get the cheesesteak on Tuesdays, the pizza on Friday. I think it was a little square pizza. So I'm
Right.
thinking back about it. My chocolate chip cookies and my chocolate milk, like everything. And then there was orange juice. I think probably
Yeah.
with lots of sugar. But
Right.
like, at that time, it was very little like vending machines and things. But now I hear in schools, it's like you're just at a stadium, so sort of, like you can
It
get
can be. It really can
chips and
be.
different things and sodas, and it's just it's interesting to watch what you said about the money and how it moves, and then it gets in schools because it's like, oh, this is like a big lead for me. I secured the whole school board with my products.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what.
We actually belong to the Illinois School Nutrition Association. So we have had a chance to go to a couple of their conferences and see what large food manufacturers and even some small food manufacturers are offering for school nutrition. I was really surprised to see toaster waffles made out of crunched up, fruity, loopy type cereal. Like, we're giving this to our children first thing in the morning, right? This is
We're wondering why they're not focused, right?
right. We're wondering why they are climbing out of their chairs and they can't exactly, they can't focus, they can't pay attention to their lessons. They've got all this flood of sugar and artificial chemicals flowing through their body because there is nothing natural about a fruity loopy waffle toaster pastry thing
Right.
that a child
Exactly.
can use. So,
What we touched on this just a second ago, but for people that may be new to this whole idea, like when you mentioned we know the danger of dairy, or you mentioned something like that, can you just tell parents why it would be beneficial to use make your own almond milk or buy even almond milk instead of feeding them milk? Because it's like we've all heard it, celebrities say it, like milk is good for the body. Like, why would we not want to drink milk? Like, I've heard about hormones, I've heard many different things, but is it the saturated fat and that we're allergic to it, basically? Thank you, Carl.
yes, thank you, Carl. Um, so there's a few different things there. Let's look at the hormones first. So, cow's milk comes from a cow that it is either currently pregnant or who that has just delivered a calf, right? So there are high levels of hormones in the milk, and that's because that's the way cows are made, right?
Mhm.
Sadly, the calf is not allowed to suckle, does not get a chance to nurse from its mother. The calves generally are taken from the mother and fed from a bottle, which is just so sad. Anyway, and the mother then, when the calf is taken away, begins to grieve and mourn. Where's my baby? Just like you would do if you had a baby, or I would do. I want to
Mhm.
see I know I had a baby in my belly for
Mhm.
how long, right?
Right. And
I
we
know
know
I just
how
went through
animals
the
are protective if you've ever had,
yes, I know I just went through the process to deliver a baby. So where is my baby, right? So all those hormones that the mom would normally have, and all of those stressors and um, needs uh, are there flowing through through the cow, right? And then we take that we we export the cow. We get rid of the little baby calf.
I've
Get rid
heard
of the
that
calf.
mother cry out. I watched a
Right.
video like that. Don't I
So
wouldn't
sad.
recommend it unless you want to stop drinking milk right then.
Yeah, it is the saddest thing, right? The cows cry tears, right, for their babies, as would any of us. Um, so the calf gets removed from the mom, and then humans come in and begin to siphon off the milk, right? The cows have to be re-impregnated regularly to keep the milk flowing, and that is a whole horrific thing. Now, as a female, I don't want to overstep where the typical culture of this podcast, right? But it is a horrific thing to be a female human in this life and know that female cows or any animal, doesn't matter the sex, are being abused like that. And cows typically are being abused to the point where they're impregnated on a regular schedule, like at least once a year, I think, and until they can no longer get pregnant anymore and they're called spent. Then they are shuffled off to be used as cheap hamburger. So, as a female and somebody who believes in women's rights, I translate that to other animals as well. I have been on the receiving end of unkind treatment based on gender or appearance, right? I don't want to do that to anyone else. I don't want to do that to another animal. So that's one reason for me milk is offensive. That's like, uh, an ethical issue or a
Mhm.
moral issue. Physiologically, we are not cows. You are not a baby cow. You do not need to drink the milk that the universe makes for baby cows, that the cow makes for her babies, right? It's created by the divine, whatever that is, that figures all of these magical things out, all these interconnections in animals and plants and universe, right? Call that God, goddess, call it Allah, call it whatever you want to call that. I don't care. But there's something in my belief that pulls all this together and
Yes.
has the perfect in a family, right? The mom is going to supply the perfect milk for the baby,
Hmm.
at least in mammals. I'm not a baby cow. I don't need to be drinking cow's milk. That's somebody else's milk. That's not for me, right? On top of that, humans, like I said, about 65 or 75% of humans can't digest cow's milk anyway. So why do we need it? And I'm one of those kids, I cannot, right? So I don't see any value in it. On top of that, milk and cheese is the single richest source of saturated fat that we get in our diets.
Hmm.
So we don't need that. Yeah. So many reasons
And
not to
the
drink milk. So
you
many.
mentioned too, like that they are over milk and they're artificially impregnated, and then also I've even read that they develop infections, and that's why the milk has to be. And I never thought about this. That's why it has to be essentially shot with antibiotics or and things like. There's so many. Like I was thinking about meat the other day, and people were talking about processed food, which is also not great at all that we've developed so many processed foods, but
Right.
the biggest kind of processed foods are milk and I mean our meat and dairy. If you think about it, all the things that need to be injected to make them suitable for a human,
Mm,
and then like it's something we're marketed that's making us healthy and we're feeding it to our kids, but yet it's actually really like the secret cause of a lot of disease and things that our
yes.
kids are dealing with. It's like once you come out and see that, it's like that's why I even started this, because not only to talk about how people are healing from it, but like understand it's baby steps. If you're watching this and your mind's blown like mine was when I watched that first documentary, make a little change, right? Like get some help and start learning how to incorporate plants. And it's a definitely a big change, but it's so definitely worth it. And what can you just talk a little bit about the organizations that you're a part of, and like how you the 6 million seeds I know, and just so many things you've done, that you're not just a bystander, you're like making change out there. That's why I love following you.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Jen. That's really kind of you. So Where do I begin? Okay, so the the nonprofit that I am most actively working with, and I work with quite a few, is yay, Carl, thank you. um, Plant-based nutrition movement. We'll go there first. That is a 501c3 in the Chicagoland area specifically. It's an Illinois nonprofit. When 2020 hit and everybody had to go home and stay inside for months, you remember those days? We decided that we would be mostly online, right? And we
Yeah.
started doing programs online. We started a podcast called Growing a Healthy Child, and that now you can find on our YouTube channel for Plant Based Nutrition Movement. Um, Plant-based nutrition movement was started by a cardiologist, and he was working specifically with adults with chronic illness that hits adults, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, these kinds of things, and more. He was involved with the organization for about a year, and then he had a kind of reshuffling of life and priorities, and things happened. And that's when he stepped away, and I became president and CEO. Literally one morning I woke up and understood that it was children that I was supposed to work with.
Mhm.
And that's how that started. With that, I came up with this idea for the 6 Million Seeds Project, and worked with our board of directors. And one of the people on our board in particular, Carrie Bruno, was very instrumental in getting that launched. Um, so the 6 Million Seeds Project is about child nutrition specifically. It has 3 parts. One part, we go into schools or faith-based organizations or summer camps or anywhere children already are, boys and girls clubs, and talk to them about food, plant-based foods in particular, and give them the experience of eating the rainbow or a salad bar or whatever we're giving them, black beans and rice, whatever, and encourage them to try something different. Try something you never tried. We don't force them to eat anything,
Mhm.
but we do encourage them to be brave, try something new. And those are transformative for the kids.
Yes.
The second part of that project is the Growing the Healthy Child podcast. And then the third part is working collaboratively with other groups, because the issues that we see with child nutrition in the United States, and we can expand that and say all around the world, anywhere children eat, in particularly in westernized countries, the issues we see need to be addressed everywhere,
Mhm.
everywhere, right? And it's way too big of a job for us to do alone. There's no group of 5 or 10 or 110 or 10,000. You need a lot of people to make a
Mhm.
difference. We have 73 million children in this country, and every one of them, basically, if you look at the statistics, every one of them are eating poorly.
Mhm.
Everyone. Now there's the occasional outlier who lives, coming from some vegan family, and the mom and dad have it figured out exactly how to do that and make sure the child gets enough calories and all the fiber and a wide variety of colors and um, plants and things like that. But um, mostly our children are just very poorly fed. So that's one of the groups. Another group is just within the last year, working with another colleague of mine, Paul Chatlin. We launched the Sage Circle Alliance, and that is a group of, it's a membership organization, and that's a group of whole food, plant-based entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and change makers. And our goal with that one is to keep people in business. If you are an entrepreneur, and you're a whole food, plant-based, or healthy vegan entrepreneur, the last thing we want is for you to go out of business because you didn't have the tools you need, or you couldn't afford the skills to hire, to hire the skills you need, or um, you didn't know how to build an email list, or create the things that are currently important to market a business, especially online. So
Mhm.
we work with our members and support them to stay afloat, and we pool resources, and we try to keep keep each other inspired and going. That's
Mm-hmm.
that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great one. It really is. That's sagecirclealliance.org. Then the other ones that I wasn't instrumental in creating myself, I'm a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Uh, Wonderful organization. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. Right now, working with the health equity um, i- achieved through lifestyle medicine group of ACLM, because we know that there are groups in our population, not just children, but people of color, recent immigrants, people who don't speak the language, who are at seriously high risk for poor health outcomes because of the food that they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal in that is to bring this message specifically to people who need to hear it most. So that's what that one's about. And it can be, that happens in a lot of different ways, but that's through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And then I also have the honor of being connected to the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, and that is on their medical advisory board. So a couple times a year, maybe 4 times a year, we get together and talk about priorities and what can we do to support that organization and keep the message expanding, ever growing. How can we increase the reach, and what does that organization need to support the message going forward?
That is amazing. I mean, that and the fact that, the medical advisory board, the fact that I think a lot of people do, as we all do, because we grew up, we know that we should listen to our nurses and doctors. And I love when I have like a nurse, physically on here, like telling you to feed your kids plants. I love it, right?
Yes,
Hiking
yes,
Hippo, welcome. Thank you so much. Said, I think all feminists would understand the objections of the dairy industry. And Marakita, I saw your comment too. Thank you. It is suppression of the
it
feminine. Thank
is.
you for that. And just so we can, also, I forgot to even touch on this. You did raise your kids, or at least one or two of them, plant based. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was not plant-based when I started having children, right?
Okay.
Let me restate that. I've always eaten more plants just because I started so young,
Mm-hmm.
when I was 15. So I've always been one of the like cook dry beans from dry beans, cook brown rice. I've always done that. Salads, always. But I was still eating meat when I had my children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have three, two biologicals and one bonus. My bonus daughter is the light of my life. Love her. All my kids are the light of my life. But it's something about having a daughter that makes a difference.
Right.
Um, so the two younger ones are my one son and my daughter were actually born in the same year, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they're very similar in a lot of ways. I find that fascinating. They're, no blood relation, but they're very similar in how they see the world. And both of them are plant based, not completely, not 100%. And not in that very sort of, nope, I can these are the lines I live between, and I
Yeah.
don't step outside those lines. They're not quite like that. My daughter eats cheese and dairy products. We're still working on that. I encourage her to steer away from those all the time. And my son is a very well, they're both great cooks, but my son cooks a lot for himself. So when he's cooking, it's all plant products, right? If he goes over somebody else's house and what they're having is animal products, well, he doesn't make a fuss about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's kind of how they work.
That's amazing. And they got the foundation though there. And I know kids have to like explore, and I like that you're allowing them to, they're going to come up with this on their own, how they want to, stay, because we live in a world where if it's not their decision, they're probably just going to go run the other way if they don't completely get it within themselves. Like, I feel better when I eat this, and I
Mhm.
don't feel good when I eat this, or, but that's amazing. And it's good to know, like, that you have the same struggles that probably all of us would have, shifting your children's diet, especially depending how old they are. So that it
Yes.
sounds like
Yeah.
the younger we can start, the better. At least we get some plant foundation in there
Yeah.
in the beginning. So that's so cool. And I will have all of these links like right in the description. I think that's an amazing organization. Do you have the podcast? Do they air at a certain time, or should we just click the link and
You can just click the link. It's in our
okay.
YouTube channel. They're recorded.
Awesome. If you want to hear more and if you want to join the organizations that she's part of, everything is linked there, and we'll get the link to the graphic. And also, there's a couple of beginner guides that I have in there for you that are free from my channel. So, anything you have a good foundation if you're the first time hearing this to get started, you can connect with Meryl and follow her. And she is definitely a health advocate, and you've done so much. It's really amazing that you took the time to come on here, because it sounded like as I was hearing all those organizations, I'm like, oh, I feel so great that you came on here. Oh, you're welcome, Michelle. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining.
thank you. Thank
And
you. My
I'll let
pleasure.
you hear that one. And is there anything, I guess, as we wrap up here, because I've kept you probably longer than you even thought. I just was so, I could have asked like 100 questions, but I'm like, stop, Jen. You'll here
No
again.
problem. It's no problem.
What is there anything in closing you'd like to say as like a message you'd like to leave with us?
So I am I think this could be, you know what, you can tell me I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm wrong. I imagine that often people who are listening to a podcast about veganism or whole food plant-based eating, maybe they're already whole food plant-based. Maybe they're already doing that, right? So I mean I'm sensitive that I feel like in a way we preach to the choir a lot, you know. We are telling people stuff they already know or things they already agree with. So if I were going to say something to the group that I figure is already the choir, right? People are already here and of the fold, of the faith, right? Um, do what you can if you've got children around you to expose them to fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and rice, whole grains, mushrooms, all of that. Do what you can, because so often we don't think about it like that. We don't think that we need to give our children. We think, oh, just this one time we'll go through the drive-through, or it's my grandkids, they're over here, but their parents are not whole food plant-based, and they already left them hot dogs and corn dogs and other stuff that they can eat. They brought their food. But there are things that we can do, even if it's our grandchildren or our niece or our nephew or the next door neighbor kid who happens to come over, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you don't have like a control over what they eat every day. But you could certainly, when they're over your house, give them apples with peanut butter if they're hungry or they're snacking, or give them dates with almond butter, or if they're sensitive to nuts, um, give them. You know what I used to love, a banana of whatever ripeness you prefer, and eat it with sunflower seeds with a little bit of salt. That is less. That is such a happy thing for me. Or whatever, the meal I described earlier, get a little sweet potato, like no bigger than your fist, a little one, cut it open and load it up with fruits and nuts and seeds. That is so wonderful. you know Encourage your children, whoever you can influence of the children. If you a part of a church, and see if you can bring in something that's not so objectionable for snacks during Sunday school. So that's one thing. Other thing is, if you're not already living this lifestyle, every day add one vegetable to your plate. Every day, every meal. So if it's breakfast and you're having oatmeal, do you know you could have spinach with your oatmeal and you'd never notice? You would never notice it's in there if you chop it up fine enough. You'll never notice. You can have, the other day I had roasted Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and onions for breakfast. It was great. You know,
Mhm.
have more vegetables every day. Try a new grain once every couple weeks. Try a new one. There's a lot. Try a different kind of bean. Expand, continue to expand your understanding of vegetables and what you can put together and flavors and textures and colors. Those are my recommendations. Just be curious about it. Maintain your curiosity. You know,
Mhm.
that's your way in, you know, be curious.
I love that. And I when it comes to different food, I had no idea when I like entered into this until I started connecting the dots that food had anything to do with a lot of things I was dealing with, allergies, back pain. I really never thought about it. I thought it had something to do with how my back was shaped or the muscle pulls or or it had something to do with pollen and that different things that never connected the dots for me, any kind of joint pain that it had to do with what I was eating, like that
Mhm.
was something
That's
I
right.
needed. So like when it comes to kids, I think if they're dealing with something behaviorally or acne or different things that we all think is normal, just like how we think when we get older these things are normal, it's really not. And I've noticed from watching so many people's transformation stories and different people who've healed their children of different things that just changing it, like you said, adding some more fruits and vegetables, how much of a difference, watch if it starts to to make a difference. And that
Right.
that could be what they're needing.
Yeah. You know that one, and if while you're adding fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and mushrooms and all of that, um, decrease the dairy products.
Mhm.
Eliminate them as quickly as you can. One thing we didn't say, you alluded to it, Jen. It's a very dirty fluid, right? It's very dirty. Never mind that it has the hormones and they inject the cows with antibiotics to prevent illness and to help them grow more quickly and all of these things. They say 50% of the antibiotics used in this country go to livestock animals, right? That's a lot. So then on top of that, there are the infections that occur in the udders, and there's the amount of pus and blood that's actually in the milk. It is just a filthy, filthy, literally filthy enterprise. So while you're adding fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and mushrooms and beans and whole grains, back down, eliminate, weed out the things that cause illness, and milk is a big one.
Mhm. I'm glad that we're here to put this information out, and thank you for all the work that you do, globally to help get this out there because it's such important work in the next generations. It starts there, right? So I really appreciate you and appreciate you coming on here and everything you're doing. I know we'll continue to stay in touch. And everyone, please go to the description and join her links so you can see more about this and can see everything that she's doing. And thank you, everybody who was here. Dawn, thank
Yes.
you for telling everyone to click the like button. It said like, I know it meant like. And then we got Carl, thank you for being here. Hiking Hippo, Michelle, and Mariquita Solis, my friend.
Yeah.
Check out her channel too. And Meryl, I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing your plants formation and everything you're doing. And thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day or evening, everyone.